The time is 7:33 p.m., and I call the May 20th, 2025 meeting of Yardley Borough Council to order. Please stand for the pledge to our flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry.
I don't think so.
I'll just announce it.
Yeah, just quickly.
So prior to the meeting this evening at 7 o'clock, Borough Council held an executive session pursuant to Section 708A1 of the Sunshine Act to discuss employment matters pertaining to the Yardley Borough Police Department.
Thank you. And I will be chairing tonight's meeting because President Thompson is out tonight. Paula, could we get a roll call, please?
All right. Mr. Carlson?
Present.
Mr. Stump?
Present.
Mr. Feiner?
Present.
Mr. Applebaum?
Here.
Ms. Siegel-Mars? Ms. Scherer and Ms. Thompson are both absent tonight.
So we have 5 members present, which means we have a quorum. We will move into community announcements. Does anyone from council have any community announcements tonight? Okay. Anyone in the public? Well, there's no one in the public. So we'll move on to the next matter, which is public comment. This is the portion of the meetings where members of the public can approach the table, say their name and address, and keep their comments to 3 minutes. Since we have no members from the public tonight present here, I will assume there is no public comment. And next, we will move into the consideration of the consent agenda dated May 20th, 2025. And that includes the following items. Item A is approval of minutes dated May 6th, 2025. Item B is event permit for Memorial Day Mile 52625 Main Street. Item C is event permit Yardley 5K, June 1st, 25, East and West Afton, North Delaware. Item D is a banner permit for Yardley 5K Memorial Mile. Item E is certificate of appropriateness 25-12-114, 1/2 South Main Street, siding and windows. Item F is certificate of appropriateness 25-1335 Canal Street siding. Item G is consideration of FEMA funded 112 to 114 Morgan Avenue payment certificate number 4. And item H is communication plan police transition committee, which includes 3 items: police statement, public statement, Yardley Police Transition Committee communication plan. Does any member of council wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? Yes, which item?
I'd like to pull H, the Communication Plan Police Transition Committee.
Okay. Any other items? Okay. So with that, we will consider items A through G. And do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through G?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion? Okay. Motion made by Councilperson Carlson and seconded by Councilperson Siegel-Mars. Is there any discussion from council? From the public? Yes, please approach. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Yeah, Earl Markey. I live here in the borough.
Yes. What's your address? Just for the record.
I don't give my address. So
You don't give your address. Okay.
nope, I don't have to.
Okay.
So yes, I'd like to make a general public comment. I'm
Sure.
a little late because of I was running we had a fire call, and I apologize. But may I do so now?
Sure.
Or okay.
Yep. No, this is it.
So that's it. Mayor Hardy's not here. I wanted to thank him publicly for officiating my wedding with Roxanne here in Borough Hall. It was a beautiful venue, and Mayor Harding did an exceptional job. And we're very appreciative of him doing that. And I wanted to state that publicly. Last meeting, after I left, some comments were made by a member here in regards to some of the litigation that I've entered into. specifically referred to as a hobby. And I'd like to say that I'm fortunate that I can write briefs and deal with the court system on my own as a pro se litigant. But just like someone who hires an attorney and has a dispute over things that are matters of zoning or civil rights, okay? These are meritorious claims. I have every right to bring them. And in our civil society, we have courts to resolve disputes between parties. If the borough doesn't want to be on the other side of litigation with me, then don't make decisions that put you in that position. You were all copied on the filing, a draft of the filing regarding the vaults activities at 19 West College. I sent a draft. I filed the same in the court after because, and the borough is merely served on that. You're not even a party. But it necessitates me having to go to court when the borough doesn't enforce a zoning ordinance. Either I can sit here and tell you, hey, you need to enforce the law, or I have to do a private cause of action to do it myself. It's my property rights. If you lived across the street from it, you would be doing the same thing. I just lucked out. 19, they want to do everything there. So I thought it'd be, come and give some context. I'm fortunate that I can file my own paperwork in court. Some people can't. I can deal with it. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Okay, so we did a public comment during the discussion for the consent agenda. So just to remind us, we have a motion on the table that's been seconded, and I'd like to call the question. All those in favor for the consent agenda motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? And the motion passes unanimously, or 5-0. I guess that's unanimously, when you only have 5. Sorry, I'm not used to doing this. Okay, we will now consider item H, which was removed from the consent agenda. And this item actually has 3 items in it. The name of the item is Communication Plan and Police Transition Committee. And the 3 items are Police Statement, Public Statement, and Yardley Police Transition Committee Communication Plan. And I think, let me call those up, and I think what I'm going to do is actually read those items for the benefit of the public. I know there's nobody here live, but there are people online, so let's do that. I also have a statement to read from President Thompson as well. So the first item, which is the police statement, is as follows. It's to Yardley Borough Police Department from the Police Transition Committee. The subject is Update on Police Leadership Transition. Dear officers, as many of you know, Yardley Borough has officially launched the transition process following Chief Kelly's departure. In the interim, Sergeant William J. Golden III is serving as acting head of the police force. With over 20 years of service in Yardley, Sergeant Golden's experience and steady presence provide essential continuity during this time. While this may appear to be a simple chain of command change, the borough is required to follow several civil service and procedural steps before leadership titles and roles can be formalized. We are actively working through those details, and we appreciate your continued professionalism and patience as we do so. To help guide this transition, a police transition committee has been formed. The committee is tasked with assessing both leadership options and the broader structure of police services in Yardley moving forward. We understand that this may raise questions or concerns, and we want you to know that your voices and experiences will be part of the process. Please expect an invitation to be interviewed by the committee soon. You can follow updates on the borough's website here, and it gives the yardleyborough.com/police transition. However, it's not live yet. If you have questions, concerns, or suggestions, we encourage you to reach out to Sergeant Golden, the borough manager, or any member of the committee directly. The contact details below. Your work is vital to our community, and we want to ensure that you are supported every step of the way. Thank you again for your continued service and commitment to Yardley, the Yardley Borough Police Transition Committee. So this statement I'm just going to like deal with each of these sub-items separately. I think it's just easier. So do I have a motion to approve this police statement that I just read? Because it's part of the consent agenda, but nobody wants to make a motion to approve it?
Are we supposed to do them separately, though?
Well,
That's what I'm-
we could take them all together, I guess.
Do all your majors one.
I was going to take them separately because, okay, so
No, I'm just asking.
I think for simplicity, we'll just, yeah, procedurally, it seems like we can't go wrong by having more votes, and we could go wrong by having one lump sum vote. So I'm just thinking we'll take it piece by piece. So I'm going to ask if anyone wants to put a motion to approve this letter. Otherwise, I'll just move
I'll
on.
make a motion to approve the police.
Okay, and do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made by Councilperson Carlson and seconded by Councilperson Stump. Any discussion from council? From the public?
Dave, you pulled these from the consent agenda. Do you have any questions?
Not yet.
Okay, all right, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any abstained? Any, sorry. Okay, motion passes unanimously 5-0. Okay, the next item is item H2, public statement. Okay, this item, I'm going to read this item, and we'll go from there. Yardley Borough launches police transition process. Yardley Borough has officially launched the transition process following the announced departure of Chief Joseph Kelly. To ensure continuity in leadership, Sergeant William J. Golden III, a 20-year veteran of the Yardley Borough Police Department, is currently serving as acting head of the police force. While establishing a chain of command may seem straightforward, there are procedural and civil service considerations contractually that Borough Council is carefully navigating in partnership with Sergeant Golden. We're grateful for the patience and professionalism of our officers, and we formalize both leadership titles and our broader transition plan. More details will be shared soon. To guide this work, Borough Council has formed a police transition committee charged with evaluating Yardley's current and future police service needs and assessing leadership options. Committee members: Christopher Harding, co-chair; Caroline Thompson, co-chair; Uri Feiner; Kimberly Siegel-Morris; Linda Staropoli, and Paula Johnson. We are committed to transparency and public engagement throughout this process. You can follow our progress at yardleyborough.com/police transition. I think not live yet. Or is it? No. Okay. We also welcome your participation at our monthly committee meetings, which will take place and I don't think that those are established yet.
Second meeting of the month.
The second meeting,
Second Tuesday of the month at 6:30.
okay, let me
Was
just,
advertised, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure it's a,
6:30, yes, second Tuesday of the month at 6:30, once a month,
correct.
okay?
Right now, we have June 17th, July 15th, and August 19th.
Okay.
scheduled.
Okay, so we have those three dates, and the public is welcome to be part of that conversation.
Is it the second Tuesday or the third Tuesday?
Second, so it's not when the council meeting happens, it's,
That can't be the case.
Because June 17th is the third.
oh, it's the third Tuesday, that's right, it's before the council meetings.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay.
it's the third, okay,
Bouncing around some-
so let's just clarify that. We have this statement here, so it's the third Tuesday of June, July, August, so June 17th, and then it would be July 15th, and then August
17.
19th? Is that right?
I'm sorry.
Okay, Okay.
August 19th, yeah.
third Tuesday of every month, June, July, August. Okay? Thank you for your continued support and engagement as we undertake this important work on behalf of the Yardley community. So that question now is the second one, the public statement. I'm also going to read, actually, let me just take a, okay. We're going to take I'll call the question, hang on. Do I have a motion to approve this communication to the public?
So moved.
Okay, any second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilperson Siegel-Morris, seconded by Councilperson Carlson. Any discussion from council? And the one discussion item I have for that is I'm going to read you the statement from Caroline Thompson, who couldn't be here tonight, but she asked to read the statement. And this is just important for the public. Yardley Borough Council appreciates the public's patience and engagement as we navigate the transition in police department leadership following Chief Kelly's department. We understand there may be questions about why a new interim or acting chief has not yet been publicly appointed. While council is fully supportive of Sergeant William Golden's continued leadership as acting head of the force during this transition period, the process of naming an interim or acting chief is more complex than it may appear. Due to existing collective bargaining agreements and state civil service regulations, we cannot simply assign someone to this role without negotiating specific terms that protect both the borough and the officer involved. Unlike temporary shift coverage, this appointment would involve a formal change in employment classification, potentially affecting pension, overtime pay, and other rights under civil service. Our legal counsel is helping us ensure that any arrangement honors both the law and our commitments to our officers. We are actively working through these questions and expect to finalize a solution that maintains stability within the department, supports our officers, and aligns with legal and contractual agreements. Until then, Sergeant Golden continues to serve as a senior officer on duty and is coordinating day-to-day operations. We will continue to keep the public informed as the process moves forward. So that's the statement from Caroline Thompson. I'm going to just add to that just sort of like take it down to the simplest terms possible. We have a whole contractual agreement, and there's a whole system of dealing with that. And we can't make the change to have Sergeant Golden act in a different role than his current role is a process, and we have to follow the legal process for doing that. Personally speaking, and I think a lot of people in town agree, he's been here 20 years. I really appreciate the work he's put in and the leadership he's taken. What's that?
Here.
Yeah. And I see him as our chief, our interim chief personally, but we can't call him that without going through a process of council and a contractual process. And I hope that we end up with that, but it's 7 people, so whatever council decides will happen. Any other discussion? Okay.
Real quick question
Yeah.
on this. What you read from our packet, seems to be some changes or additions made to this letter before it's released? Because I don't see the
Exactly the
times.
same.
Sorry?
You read it exactly as the same
Times,
as the
no,
one
the times that I added that into,
Oh, the times.
yeah, that wasn't
Right, the
in,
times
because
weren't in there.
because it has like insert date, time, location in the letter as kind of like a placeholder. So I announced those times. I filled that in. Is that the one you're talking about? The Yardley Borough launches police chief transition
Yes, I am
process?
looking at that. I'm just looking. Okay.
Okay, so all that said, any further discussion?
Yes, you
that
said that
item.
these will be public,
Correct.
so no,
Oh, that's a good point.
just want
So,
to make sure that that's the case.
okay, so that's a good point because I'm a member of that committee, so I can say we have had Zoom and public meetings. So I think that this says that they're going to be public. So I think that needs to be clarified.
They are going to be public meetings. The only time they're going to be closed meetings, it's when you're talking personnel and it has to go into an executive session. So they are public meetings.
Okay, so if there's a Zoom meeting, that would be public as well.
Yeah, I don't know if we anticipate Zoom meetings.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, I think they're all going to be
It's
in
all going to be
person.
in person in Borough Hall,
Yes.
public invited. Okay, perfect. And
Did miss, where is the location again?
Here, right here.
Right here?
right here in Borough Hall where we meet for council. Will they be recorded
No,
or live streamed?
no.
No. Okay. So you have to show up.
Unless, yeah.
Unless people want.
something changes.
Okay. Any other?
Do we have the option to record them?
I don't see why we couldn't we just run
Cost.
cost?
We would have
Because we
to
need to have somebody there. We can't run that system ourselves yet?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
But an individual could bring a
an individual could bring a live stream thing if they want.
Thank you.
Phone, okay. All right. Anything else on this topic? Okay, so now we're on, to remind us where we are, we're on item H, sub-item 2, public statement. And the motion on the table is to approve this public statement. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 5-0. And we'll move on to the third item, which is item H, number 3. Okay. This is the communication plan. This is the Yardley Police Transition Committee Communication Plan. So we're being asked to approve this communication plan, which is, okay, a lot of parts here, but I'm going to read the first page of it, and then there's like a detailed plan that you can see in your packet. Committee objectives: assess current and future policing needs, review current department structure, staffing, and service delivery, identify future needs based on call volume, community expectations, and budget realities. Explore service delivery models is the second section. Analyze the benefits and drawbacks of maintaining an independent department versus entering into a shared services agreement with a neighboring municipality. Consider legal, operational, and financial implications of each model. This will require coordination with L&T leadership. Engage stakeholders. Collect input from officers, borough staff, council members, and residents. Ensure transparency and community trust through regular updates and public engagement. This is the fourth item now. Conduct financial and operational analysis. Review current police budget, staffing costs, and overhead. Assess long-term sustainability and identify potential savings or investments required under each service model. Next item, deliver a clear recommendation. By September, deliver a written recommendation to Borough Council outlining the committee's findings, rationale, and preferred path forward. Include an implementation roadmap tailored to the selected option, timeline, hiring process, or intermunicipal agreement steps. And then the final one is post-recommendation. Post-recommendation's objectives will be drafted once a path forward is selected. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the Yardley Borough Police Transition Committee Communication Plan?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Second?
Second.
Okay, a motion made by Councilperson Steele Morris, seconded by Councilperson Carlson. Any discussion from anyone on council?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm looking at the section that says explore service delivery models. And what I am seeing here is that there seems to be a predetermined, I want to make sure I pick my words properly, that if we were to fold into another municipality, it seems that it's predetermined it would be Lower Makefield Township. In my mind, even if, first of all, I must state for the record, I'm vehemently opposed to folding into another municipality. But that being said, why does it have to be Lower Makefield Township?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at this and just kind of feeling around town. And I think the vast majority of people live here because they feel safe here and they love our community and they feel safe. One of the main reasons is because we have this small local police force that takes care of them and is never more than 1 square mile away. So I'm with you on, it would have to be, the bar is very high for me to imagine a situation in which we would not want that. That said, I'm keeping an open mind. But your question is interesting because I started to think, well, what happens if, we look at alternatives, right? So we look at alternatives, and I actually did some research into this, and I discovered that when towns outsource police, they don't have to outsource to like the next town next to them.
They don't.
What they do is they basically get some town that wants to be a municipality that goes under contract in the general area, and they might say, like in our case, let's say we said, okay, we want the equivalent policing, we would contract with somebody and they would bring their officers into our building and they would have a satellite here. They'd bring their cars and they would do what we wanted them to do for whatever contract rate we contracted them to. And we would create this structure so that if in 3 years we wanted to change to a different municipality, we could do that. We wouldn't be locked into one.
So supply.
I don't know why this says Lower Makefield, because
Would you, so in other words, we could put this, if we were to do this, still not in support of it, but if we were, we could create a circumstances that would require true negotiation, because then people would be competing, or, excuse me, municipalities or police forces would be competing. Is that correct?
yeah, like I think that what scared me, look, last time we went through this, I sat here and I said, you know, if we quote unquote defund the police and eliminate it, and we go to Lower Makefield, at the time council was unanimously against exploring that. And the reason was because if we did it, and even if they gave us a lower price, well, okay, so they gave us a lower price, but now we're stuck with them. We've disbanded a 100-year-old police force. And now, let's say we don't get the service level we like. Let's say the price goes up after 3 years, or whatever else happens. We're totally stuck and beholden to them. So it shouldn't be structured in such a way that there's only one, you know, just like any work we would do, we would send out an RFP and we would get, you know, proposals to do that job.
Can I propose an amendment to the resolution?
Yeah.
To resolve this?
Sure.
I'd like to amend the resolution to, under the paragraph of explore service delivery models, change the last sentence to read, this will require coordination with the chosen, with leadership of the chosen municipality.
So let me just,
That way, we don't have to get into that whole discussion. That makes this document has nothing that links it to any one municipality.
so, okay, let me just, hang on, let me just get up that, make sure I'm looking at it correctly. Okay. So your proposal is for amendment is to say what exactly, again?
To change the last sentence under paragraph, explore service delivery models, to say, this will require coordination with the chosen municipality's leadership.
Okay. So we have a motion has been made. Do I have a second? A motion for amendment has been made. Do I have a second?
For John's,
To change the one sentence.
yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been seconded. So we now will vote on the amendment, and then we'll continue. So I will call the question. Is there any discussion on the amended sentence? And Paul, you're keeping track? Okay. So I'll call the question.
Actually, I agree that we should change the sentence, but my, I guess, question and/or concern is, so the whole sentence was, we're analyzing the benefits and drawbacks of maintaining an independent department versus entering into a shared service agreement with a neighboring municipality, and it's open any municipality. We're going to consider the legal, operational, and financial implications of each model. This will require coordination with LMT leadership.
I just changed that sentence.
I know you changed it, but my concern is, why is that in there? If this is, why was this document written with that in there? It almost feels like,
If you,
the whole point of this is to explore the potential of partnering with a neighboring municipality. But this makes me think that there has been a working assumption in these committee meetings that I didn't know were open to the public until tonight, that we're going with LMT. And I'm not making, I don't have all the information, so I'm not making any accusations, but I know something that's been brought up a lot in the past by concerned residents is that sometimes when we don't explain things thoroughly, it feels like backroom doors are being made. And I mean, looking at this, it feels like there's more going on that we're not being told, and it concerns me.
Someone from the committee comment on that?
yeah.
So you're part of the committee. Do you?
Yeah, so I think that, okay, so let's get some background here, okay? I was involved in the EIT and what happened with that, the TOD. the Reading Avenue. And each of those things, what they have in common is insufficient public engagement, which led to a perception from the public that there were backroom deals being made. And that is the worst situation. It's very bad for the borough, it's bad for the council, it's bad for all of our residents, it's bad for our community, and we don't want that to happen again. I will say, I'm here to be transparent as a member of the committee. I appreciate that I'm part of the committee. I value our local policing. I was like cutting like some wood thing on my property, and I was using the power tool, and like my watch sent an alert because it was like, so it was like thought something happened. And my wife comes out, "Are you okay?" And my mom calls me because she's on the list. And then like 30 seconds later, Yardley PD pulls in my driveway. And I was like, sorry. But, to me, that's very valuable. So for me to consider another arrangement, we have to have like the parameters set up for what is the equivalent policing? What does that look like, right? And back to your question about transparency and, how do we do this in a way that the public doesn't have a perception that's just being handed over, is I think we need to establish, and actually, okay, I might want to ask you if you're open to amending your amendments. I don't know how that works, but the reason is because of this. I would love to see, I think it's great we have the committee, the transparency, public participation, these are all very important things. The public needs to be super engaged to avoid what happened in those other incidents where it was felt that things were being pushed through quickly. The slower you go, the more you tell people. Tonight we're going to vote on the short-term lodging ordinance, right? And there's nobody here except for you guys because you're here, but you're here every time, so you're not here for that. That is a testament to what a great job was done in having this take a while, engage the public. They came in, their questions were addressed. There was a lot of communication. So if we could do that with this process, that's what is needed. In this case specifically, though, what I would love to see added, so take Don's amendment and add to that amendment that the committee should come back to council with proposing the key parameters for equivalent policing. And we would want to see things such as, these are examples, okay? The borough offices, borough police offices need to be used as a satellite office. We have the equivalent number of police patrolling traffic here. We have the same minimum number of officers that are located within our 1 square mile borough, right? They're walking the beat on the street the same amount they do now, and potentially rehiring our existing officers at similar pay and positions. So like those would be things that I would want that committee comes back to council and gets feedback from council, and council approves, these are the parameters for equivalent policing. Okay, now that's done. Now the next thing the committee would do is create an RFP, a request for proposal, incorporating those key parameters that could then be shopped to multiple municipalities. Because then you have something that they can compete about, and you can get different bids, and you could see who's the best available out there. And then you could compare that to what we have here. And then even if you outsource, you're never going to be locked in. And maybe you even outsource, and they hire our same people, the same people are actually here, but they could do it for less because they've got all the systems worked out. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's open-minded, but I would want to amend it for that committee to establish key parameters for equivalent policing, to deliver those to council and get council to approve them, to create an RFP, contain those key parameters, and then everything else is as we spoke about. Yeah.
I'd like to ask that you don't do anything yet.
Okay.
Because I feel that there's some other points, particularly related to the service delivery models, that are not included here. This is only 2 options. Well, the options are, maybe I'm taking a little bit out of context here, but we have either we keep the police the structure as it is, or we're going to explore entering into
Yeah.
a shared services agreement. But there are other options
Correct.
between.
Correct. Such
So
as
that
outsourcing
said, that
part of the
paragraph
hours.
is not enough, in my mind, to, you know, if you're talking about exploring, then let's really explore.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I'm open to that. I just need to figure out a way to put all this on.
I think we're jumping the gun, okay? I think we should, this item number 3, I don't think we should approve it. We should put it back to the committee to come up with
Okay.
a plan that makes more sense.
that we can all
Instead of
feel-
us trying to do it, because the
Yep.
committee was formed to go look at alternatives. And
Right.
remember the roadmap that was presented? That was very generic. That did not point in one specific direction, in my opinion. So the intent, my understanding is we were going to do it that way, okay? So I think it's not
I wouldn't-
clean
I
for us to
wouldn't
try to
want-
introduce a few.
I wouldn't
of these
even
other
argue
things.
that point, but I do have a question. Are we on a deadline that we absolutely positively have to have a decision made by December 31st? Is that what I understand?
I don't get that at all. I mean, I think this process should take as long as it needs to take for us to do
So we
the
could
job.
wait till the new council comes in?
I mean, you're asking me, I'm not.
Well, I'm asking everybody
Yeah.
at that end, because there's no one on this end.
Yeah, there is a new council, there's an election in the middle, so voters could have a say in that sense. But there's just a really, outside of that part of it, we should not feel rushed in looking at this. There's no imminent disaster that's going to happen. We should do a really good job.
There is no hard deadline in the.
Right, and we're under good leadership with a fabulous, police officer, Sergeant Golden, so.
I feel like though if we look at, and I've actually watched the April 15th council meeting 3 times now of the police presentation, and it feels like there is a little bit of pressure being applied that we need to make a decision by the end of the year because that's when the police contract ends.
It makes it cleaner.
I guess where I'm,
Makes it cleaner.
here's where I'm coming from in this, and let me just unpack where I'm at mentally with this and why rather than kind of dancing around the issue. So from my perspective, this is my perspective alone, it feels like to me what happened here was in March, we found out that Chief Kelly was leaving to go to Lower Makefield, which leaves the department without a chief. And then it feels like all of a sudden there's this conversation about outsourcing. And we have a department that works. Obviously, as most people know who have been here for any length of time, we do operate on a shoestring budget here. We do have to cut costs at every corner, but by and large, we have a department that works. And it just feels very odd to me that when one person leaves, we then have we all of a sudden start bringing up, oh my gosh, we need to outsource. In fact, I've watched back all the meetings that are available on YouTube. I know you disagree with me, but
I totally disagree with that. That's not true. It's an opportunity to go look at it. When you have changes like that, like in any business, that you have an opportunity to look at your processes and decide what to do with them.
I guess I'm not confident that there's not backroom deals going on and the decision's already been made.
So your point of view is, judging from past experience, that this is what happens, is that people, when there is insufficient transparency, people start to wonder that. So the way to combat that is to make this super public, super transparent, and I do think, to answer your point about one municipality, if we make this something that is open and shoppable to multiple municipalities, then everybody bids, it's a fair process, and we can look at the results, and there's no, the whole borough can decide. Plus, it's a good exercise. Even if we stay with our existing police, it's a good exercise to quantify it in such a way and know that we could always do that. Because whatever RFP we create is going to be usable. Whatever information we gather about the police and the format of that will be usable, here on out. Maybe we don't use it this time. Maybe we use it in 2 years.
Well, that's a very interesting point, Ori, because in 2011 or 12, I think culminating sometime, correct me if I'm wrong, 2014, wasn't there a report done exactly like this?
Yes.
And wasn't it about a year ago or so that I believe President Thompson said when Mr. Rabina was here and was asking us to fold into LMT at that time, that she said, no, we
Do a
never
study.
consider that?
Do a study.
So I agree with you, Don. I'm not arguing. I think we do, an exercise is important. But I'm just like, where did we suddenly,
did that
not
change?
we, the collective we, but, individuals just decide, oh, well, yeah, now we do think this is a good idea? I'm just a little lost.
So to clarify my statement, and I want to make it clear, I'm not making the accusation that there's something going on behind the scenes. I'm getting uncomfortable with the process because it just feels like we're like, oh, well, Chief Kelly's going to Lower Makefield, so now we need to look at merging with Lower Makefield so we can be with Chief Kelly.
Yeah.
That is my perspective of how this feels. And I'm on council. I'm privy to a little more information than the general public. I have people coming up to me on the streets and say, Jared, what's going on with the police?
Yeah.
And I say, I don't know.
And then 5 years later, Chief Kelly's no longer at Lower Makefield. Somebody else is there, and they either don't give us good policing or they jack up the
It
prices
just,
and we're stuck.
it concerns me as someone who bought my house specifically because I wanted to live in a square mile borough with its own police department. I studied the crime blotters. I mean, in Lower Makefield, they have home invasions when people are home.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
And I'm not saying their police don't do a good job, but
They have 18
I look at
square
that,
miles.
and then I look at Yardley
We have
Borough's
one.
crime blotter, and it's like, oh, there was one identity theft. Oh, there were 5 arrests in a year.
Right.
I mean, if I'm being honest, especially as a new father,
concerning.
it concerns me, and I am. Maybe this is a typo, but if it's a generic municipality, but then says we need to coordinate with Lower Makefield.
Yeah.
It feels like, and again, I know you're on the committee. I'm not accusing you or Kim.
Right, no, I understand that.
It just feels like we're making a knee-jerk reaction of, oh, the chief left, so now we need to have a.
So if we amended the process to this idea of creating it so it could go to a number of different municipalities, structuring it, what,
Response time. If you're going to get a municipality that's 4 municipalities over, talk about response time.
no, what I looked at was this
Sounds
model.
bizarre to
No,
me
no,
as
no,
a
no.
resident.
No, let me explain the model to you, because this is what I learned I didn't know about. You contract with, let's say they're 4 towns away, right? They have a larger police force. They put
Don't
their,
know our municipality.
hang on, let me just finish, because maybe you don't know, I learned this, so this is interesting. They put, either they hire our people, or they put their own people here. This becomes a satellite office. If we have 2 officers on call, they put 2 officers here, inside this borough. They service us with their people and their patrol cars, but they're working out of our office, and they are circulating throughout this 1 square mile borough. They're pulling people over just as much as we do, and patrolling the traffic. So they're doing the same job we do, and imagine they would even hire our people to do it. The difference is they have all the infrastructure. They have all the accounts, all the subscriptions, they have a chief, they have people to do the administrative work because, they're more equipped than us. So that's a model where this could be done. And I think that it's like you're on the committee too, right? Don't you want to look at that? Shouldn't we look at that model?
Can you tell me some of those municipalities that?
Not right now, but I'm aware of it.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's one in particular that I know of. So that could be a contender. So, I think, because you're sounding to me a little bit like you're in the Lower Makefield camp, and I think that's.
No, I'm not.
But that's the point Jared's making. You're saying there's no other, because we're surrounded.
You also had a very.
We're
visceral
surrounded.
reaction just like I did.
We're like the whole of a donut, right? And we're surrounded by one municipality. So the knee-jerk thing is, it would have to be them because otherwise it'd be too far. And I get that because I don't want it to be outside the 1 mile. But if it was someone else and they could put their people here,
So then.
I would insist on that. There's no way I would even personally look at that if I didn't have people here within this 1 square mile patrolling Yardley. Otherwise, if we're just thrown into the mix of Lower Makefield, what's the difference? 18 square miles, 19 square miles? I'm not voting for that. I'm sorry. I'm still telling the public right now.
I'm not even-
Not going to work for me.
But by the same token, like everything you just described with outsourcing to some other municipality and bargaining with them, then why would you assume that if, and so far, all of this was supposed to be about discussions and looking at different delivery models, right? Why would you assume that Lower Makefield would just like, oh, forget Yardley, like, we don't have to have anybody there, or we don't care about Yardley? Like, that's making a big assumption too about those police officers, and that, like, why wouldn't we be
It's
like?
not that, but the chief himself sat here and said their lack of traffic control and community policing. I
The
believe
chief
that's
said,
exactly what he said.
the chief said that, the chief did say that it wouldn't be feasible to do, because I asked about, would you have someone stationed here at all times and doing the same traffic control? And he was honest. He said it wouldn't be feasible the way they're structured. However, that said, I would love to create an RFP that required our minimum policing requirements and give them an opportunity to bid on it along with every other municipality. And because I think there could be an economy of scale and there could be a way to make this really work, but it has to be something where we're not locked in. I think we're getting a little bit away from the point. I think that I think you make a good point. We're not going to sort this out today. I think the committee needs to take back this communication plan, and we need to take into account what council thinks, this feedback. Unless you guys want to make a motion that we pass tonight, it's up to you. I mean, we have a motion on the table, we have an amended motion, and we have a potential amendment to the amendment. So we've got to figure out how to move forward.
I guess my point is that I've been uncomfortable with various aspects of this process for the past 2 months, and I've tried to keep an open mind and be open to the process. And to me, on one hand, it's like, okay, again, when 2 years ago when Mr. Rubino was here and was really pushing for this to happen, because I was watching the meetings because I'm going, oh my, this is interesting. The response to him was, well, we're not even going to study it because it's not a viable option for us. Chief Kelly told me a year ago, you don't want to merge with Lower Makefield. It's not good. It wouldn't be good for the borough. It would kill what we do here. Now that he's the chief of Lower Makefield, he wants us to merge.
No,
Don't put words in his
That's,
mouth.
so,
He never said
that is
that.
my perspective. That is my because he's gone, and now we're all of a sudden talking about a merger when
Right.
before it was, no, this is not on the
What-
table.
like
Even
what
if we have to pay
changed?
more, we're keeping the police. I'm
I
just,
think the merger talk became because obviously what we were paying chief, he left, he made more money. We didn't even
Sure.
counter offer him. I didn't even know he was leaving till it was too late. I don't know why we as a council didn't know or have the opportunity to even counter offer that before he left. And I think that,
Yeah, you brought that
I
up
think
at one
this
point.
discussion comes from, not because it's our chief and we're familiar with him and he's in Lower Makefield, yes, and I can already see that the policing over there is changing, just by their Facebook posts, right? But I think it's because now we're gonna have to find a chief, pay that chief more money, and we're also collective bargaining. So I think
I
that's
see.
why we're looking, that's my perspective, that's why we're looking at it, not because, oh, it's cheap and we have to merge now.
okay.
I think
So it's
all
it's
options
really,
make sense.
So we are, the one thing about that, though, is that we have somebody who's been here 20 years that has a high probability of being, and that's been furthering himself, and that could be a top contender for that position. So it's not like we don't have anybody. We have somebody here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If we didn't have that, we would be in like, oh no, what do we do? But we fortunately have that.
so why, and I know
no,
that's an
so-
element of it, but why do the processes all have to run concurrently is my, so
Right.
here's why you might be wondering, Jared, why didn't you bring this up? So in watching back the meeting, after Caroline gave the presentation, I was under the impression that we're going to vote on it. Normally, after somebody gives a presentation, we have dialogue and then we vote. It actually took till the third time I watched the meeting to realize that early on, she asked for a consensus and nobody said anything about forming the committee and moving forward. I didn't object, but I did not know that by not objecting that, oh, this committee's here and now it's forming and it's going. Like, I feel like perhaps a better approach, which we could have talked as a council, there wasn't back and forth. It was a presentation and now a committee's formed. And if we have a viable candidate, why can't we go down that road and maybe that works, maybe it doesn't? And then if it doesn't, we go, okay, well, we don't have a candidate and we can't afford to pay the going rate. I'm very aware of that. I've said that. I said that in the April 15th meeting. People said, Jared, don't say that, but I believe in being transparent about what's going on.
Yeah.
Am I to
Yeah, there-
understand, Jarrett, that you would like to postpone the work that they're doing and give the sergeant an opportunity to prove himself over a period of time, and then extend, give ourselves a chance to actually see if that's a viable solution versus, folding into a neighboring?
I guess I just don't understand why the processes have to run at the same
Yeah.
time and why we,
Well, that's what I'm saying. You could do one and then the other.
Well, I think what you're saying is you're making a distinction between the existing chief problem, like a vacancy that we've
Right.
got to fill, and the opportunity to say, hey, let's look at this and see if there's a better model that works for Yardley Borough. Understanding the bar is high and all those things, but there's a desire to look at that now. So, okay, so you look at that, you deal with the chief. Now, I guess the connection is that if you decide to go elsewhere, then you don't need to fill the chief position. But the decision to go elsewhere seems like a potentially lengthy, complex process.
See,
You know.
I don't think so. I think what's going to happen, remember, the way this was put out is to say, between now and September, you're going to go look at the potential of a different arrangement, okay? It may get nixed for financial reasons, for a bunch of reasons, for some of the reasons that have come out tonight about we can't find anybody who would ever be willing to put two or three people here. So that may just shut it down. And so then by the end of September,
Right.
we'll go right into the next phase of filling the job. Okay. So we're just taking this period of time here to go. It's really good because we're digging deep into what are all the
Dig
real
deeper.
costs, et cetera.
Sure.
So you have that.
Right.
Then if nothing else, you have that to help us
Budget.
budget
Right,
and
right.
do the next bargaining, do the next contract too. And so you get to the end of September and we're going to be at okay, we know we want to stay with the current model, or we want the current model adjusted by, we're going to share cars or one little piece or something, some
Yeah.
piece of it. Okay, we're going to do a little bigger sharing module than sharing gas. So we're going to have a structure, and then we go full steam on filling a position or going out to a bids thing like he says or whatever. So the process now over these next 3 months is to bubble up that. And in your committee, I'm sure you will make the point to go do this RFP kind of approach, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
But those are the things that we do between now and end of September, and then we can go either way.
So what we have now is we have two parallel paths. We have the path of some forthcoming contractual changes and negotiation for an interim head of force / chief, whatever he's going to be called.
Right.
And that's one path, and that actually gives him a chance to show what he could do in that role, right? At the same time, we have this other deep dive that's going to answer this question that we just don't have enough information for.
It
What I
may
think a lot
preclude
of us
something.
are
It may
saying
shut
to-
down a bunch of this.
I think what a lot of us is saying here is we want more information, we
Right.
want more competition, and we want to put this out, and we want more public engagement and more transparency. We want to do a sufficient deep dive so we don't have a situation on our hands that 1,000 residents are trying to sit down here saying, what are you doing? Get rid of our police force. It should be quiet like it is here for short-term lodging. And
I guess just everything I've heard is, we've tried that before, it doesn't work, it's not a viable model. I've
Yeah.
heard from previous members of council,
Yeah.
I've heard from,
That's why we're doing this exercise.
I got
to
you.
go figure that out.
you heard me say it, him say it, and I think you're saying it. It's a high bar for us, right? Like I would sit here and go through every dollar spent to find a way to keep local police if that's what I had to do. I would look through and look for $5 here, $5 there, if that's what it took.
Sure.
I would do it because I like having local police, but I'm just one person, right? But right now we're just talking about sending this message back to the committee that I'm on, that Kim's on, to say, okay, we want to kind of revise this communication plan and the process a bit to address these things we talked about and come back to council and do the work for council, so council could then listen to it, give feedback, and move it forward at each step.
And I think you can accomplish that by just not voting on that third thing.
Okay.
And all the three of the members of the committee are here. The other members of the committee, I'm sure, will watch this whole thing. And so they'll get a feel for, go create a plan that encompasses what they've been hearing for the last 40 minutes. And
Yeah, I
let them
think
do that.
we don't
Instead
have-
of us trying to nitpick it and insert little things into it.
Well, what we don't want is a
Right.
committee, like, meeting, like, in a closed conference room, and then at the very end, hey, council, this is what we decided, now you just have to approve it.
No, the communication plan has you,
Right.
updates
So,
all the time.
yeah, so we're
It's not
going
a-
to have yeah, but I think the deliverables have changed a bit because the previous deliverable was explore merging with LMT, and now we're talking about what level of policing do we want to pursue? What does a proposal look like? What other municipalities could serve that? So we really are comparing apples to apples instead of, apples to oranges.
I mean, does it make sense, though, my concern, when I thought this was something we were going to vote on, and then it's just done?
Yeah, so I
to
do
speak,
because the
so-
elevation committee was a vote, right?
So the elevation
Voted
committee is
for that.
also an ad hoc committee that also ends the end of this year. And when we wanted to form that, it was submitted at the September 3rd council meeting. We then voted on it at the September 17th council meeting, and then it went to community outreach to fill the spots. This came to us with the members have already been picked, and we're going to form it by consensus. And maybe if that's the process, that's fine, but it's confused me, and it's kind of made me feel a little uncomfortable, like, oh, if I don't know to speak up or forever hold my peace at the right time, is something going to get passed that I'm not comfortable? Because a consensus means we have a consensus. I did not realize that I had given a consensus until I looked at the minutes and it said a consensus was given. And I watched it again and went, no, we didn't vote, we didn't give a consensus. And
What
then
I think
watched-
should happen to move forward is I think the committee should reconvene and come up with a revised plan. And it should be approved by council, not just a consensus, so that everybody can weigh in on it. Everybody can agree, yes, and it's approved by an act of council, and you don't have that question.
Yeah.
Would that satisfy that?
I think so. I mean,
Well, you're de facto getting that if you don't approve this here, and a
Okay.
new plan has
Not
to come
approved,
back.
yeah.
Okay.
And we were going to vote on that.
Because I think
you're
that
essentially getting that.
Don's point makes sense, that rather than us trying to, this reminds you of the Harb thing that happened.
Yeah,
Where we're
exactly.
redesigning an ATM
Yeah,
at a
exactly.
council meeting. We need to kick this back and tell the committee, which includes three of us here, more work needs to be done on this. It's not fleshed out yet. Council needs more work. You got to raise the bar a bit.
Right.
So,
well, and I appreciate Kim's comment that she was just as surprised as we were in March when she resigned, and she would have loved to have the opportunity to counteroffer, because I didn't know that.
Right,
I mean,
right.
we don't talk after the meetings and go back and forth, and
yeah, because we very well might have done that. We may have at least floated the idea. And that does remind me, one more item that I think
it
David
just all
mentioned
happened so
about this.
quickly, and there
Yeah.
wasn't a succession plan that it made me wonder if, that's all.
So one more item that you mentioned, David, I think that the committee needs to, and I'm just saying it now because since we're looking at it now,
That it not be binding?
the Explore service delivery models, that there is a potential hybrid model where it's partially, it's not explicitly listed here, although I know it's been talked about in the committee, but I don't think it's listed
Make
here.
that argument when you get together as a
Yeah,
committee. and
it needs
bring
to be
something back us
listed.
that has that in it.
And that's a hybrid, is where you have, like, let's say, during certain hours, you have it outsourced, and other hours you have, that needs to be looked at,
Yeah, I remember you
what's-
sharing that idea with me.
right? And then what you said, David, about the committee is non-binding.
Yeah, I would
that
just
should
want to
be
make
added,
sure
okay?
that we're not pushed into something.
So what we're essentially doing now is sending messages on the recording to the committee to come back and revise this for a vote.
Just to-
And I would recommend then that we actually approve the committee's function as part of that vote, so that there isn't a question of, did we give consensus to this or not? Does that make sense? Would
Yeah,
you-
and we shouldn't have vote here, consensus here, and we're not, it should be one or the other. I believe it should be a vote.
It's something important. I would just say, like, my default for something important.
can't hurt.
Is, it can't hurt, let council vote on it. If council wants it, they vote. If they don't, they don't. But
Right.
Consensus, you don't even know who's for and against it.
Agreeing with the borough's manager's report, yeah, consensus, we agree, great. But
Financial report, we agree.
Yeah.
it's.
I agree.
It's business.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll call the question,
Wait.
the unamended.
Don't you want to ask the,
Oh. I'm so sorry. We kind of went on for a while.
I
Comments
always.
from the public,
I'm on your side.
please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Martha Hallett, and I live at 24 Penn Valley Drive. Just want to make a few comments on this. One, there has not been a huge uptick in crime since Chief Kelly left, which just as a resident to still feel safe during this transition is really comforting. And I think it's also a sign that we are in a fortunate spot where we can take some time and look at options, and we're not putting our residents at risk. So that's a good thing. And obviously, I think I was getting the sense that no one wants to commit to a 12/31/2025 deadline for making a decision if we're not actually ready for that decision. At the same time, just sometimes having deadlines in a plan is really helpful because it makes you want to meet those deadlines and take action. And I will say I was also shocked by, Chief Kelly's Lower Makefield appointment. And it was comforting to know that there was a plan, and I did really appreciate that it kind of wasn't a meeting where we were like, oh, what are we going to do? So I think sometimes there's that reaction, and maybe it didn't check all the boxes, but, it sounds like everyone's kind of in a spot where it's like, we do want to explore everything, but we do also have a trustworthy interim system in place that I think residents can feel comfortable about. So, not sure if I said anything entirely inclusive in there.
Thank you for your comment. And thank you for.
May I, just
Yeah,
tag
sure.
on to your comment
Yeah.
that there wasn't an uptick since Chief Kelly left. I would argue
Okay.
that, not that there has been, no,
Yeah.
but that there is an individual who has been here for 20 years. And particularly during his time under Chief Kelly, he has been second in command. What is the purpose of second in command other than to take that responsibility if that person is not available or leaves or whatever? So in my mind, I agree. The reason why is because nothing's fallen apart, Chicken Little. I don't mean you. But what I'm saying is, we have a system. This system is working. A person left, but we have a very capable and talented and actually pretty smart person who just completed with, I thought it was perfect scoring at his recent, certifications. I don't remember exactly what they were, but it had to do with leadership. So my point again is, we're not going to have a major problem because we're prepared.
I want to add to what you said now. It's just that the entire department we have people who have been there a long time, and we have newer people, but, the entire department has held it together, and everybody's doing more work. It's not, I mean, obviously, Sergeant Golden / acting head of whatever the current.
Agency? I
I don't know what the current
I don't know what he.
name is. I lose track, but the quote-unquote current chief, from my personal view, he's done a great job, and he's stepped up and spent more hours, but so has the whole department. And so I agree with you. We haven't seen any change, and that makes us feel like, because, losing a chief could be a scary thing.
I would like to add on to what you just added on. You added on to mine. And that is, the point you're making is then second command now is in command. Third in command is now second in command.
Right.
And my ultimate and overarching point would be to the very newest member of our police force, can look up and go, this is a great town to work in. This is a town that supports their police, and they give opportunity to grow when that opportunity comes about. And this is the opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, to that effect, we talk about morale is really important.
Yeah.
Talk about the possibility of outsourcing to another department. I would expect that we would not do that if our staff wasn't hired for, at least the equivalent position in that department and potentially would still serve our borough. Like I can't see a scenario where I would support such a thing, So I don't want anyone to feel like, it's no one should be worried in the sense of they're going to lose their job.
And I think when you look at other boroughs or other departments, then it depends on their hiring practices, because
Yeah.
if it were people coming here, we just can't, it doesn't work like that. We just can't hire them, right? They
Right.
have to go through the Civil Service Commission, and other departments
Yeah.
don't have that, so.
You're right. It's very, very complicated. And I think like that kind of thing would be like an economies of scale thing, but it would not be anything where I wouldn't entertain personally. I have to distinguish myself from council, so I'm just telling the public, I wouldn't entertain anything where we'd like lay everyone off and just replace them with another police force. That's probably legal, but it's just not right to do it regardless.
not.
So,
Because that's not Yardley Borough.
right. Any other comments from the public? We're good?
Anyone come?
Okay, so now let's scale this back and remember where we were. There was,
Oh, I think someone in the
Yes.
public
Oh,
has a question
please,
or comment.
please state your name and address.
Jason Goldstein, 147 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Thank you.
If you have a very capable individual who's second in command, then why not elevate them to police chief? Someone who knows the community, who knows the police force, who's well respected. Why go outside and bring someone in, an unknown entity? And it keeps the community, another way of keeping the community together, plus you're promoting from within as well. So that's always looked towards within. On the business side is always looking for opportunities to promote people from within.
Thank you for your comment. Yeah, it's like a 20-year job interview.
Right.
Anyway, thank you.
Okay, so what we have is this has been going on so long my computer went to sleep. Okay. We have a motion on the table. We have a motion to amend it. Do you just want to rescind the amendment and then we'll deal with the motion directly? Does that make sense? Are you good with that?
Yeah, I'd like to change my,
Change your-
can I change my amendment to just table item
Table it.
H3
Okay, I'll second that.
instead of trying to amend it?
Okay, I'll second that. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of tabling the motion to approve the communication plan for the Police Transition Committee, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, well, that was a long one. Okay. We will move on to finance report and consideration to accept the May 20th, 2025 finance report. I am asking for consensus from council.
Yes.
Not a vote. Any issues with the finance report? Questions? Okay, we will assume we have consensus then. And we will now move to part 2 of our meeting tonight. This is the working session. Believe it or not, we were not in the working session yet. This is the working session portion of our meeting. It's a monthly opportunity for council to freely discuss open business items or future potential business items. And for this meeting, the committees in the rotation are general government, community outreach, and community and economic development. We will start with general government. Item A is a vote to adopt ordinance number 497, short-term lodging. Do I have a motion to approve that ordinance?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made by Councilman Applebaum, seconded by Councilman Carlson. Is there any discussion from council?
I'd like to just, for the benefit of people who may be watching this and when we move forward and people get reference to the process of creating a short-term lodging update, I want to make sure, I'm going to go through these slides extremely fast because you've all seen them, but I just want them out there so that when people go to this recording, they know what it is. The process started back in September of 2023. We went through engagement of what should be in the short-term lodging ordinance. We researched other ones. We got inputs from many different people. And we finally have gotten to the point here where we have an actual ordinance on the table that was advertised per the official way it needed to be in April, and we're now ready to vote on it. Next slide, please. To remind everyone, there's a couple pieces of it. One is if you want to have a specific bedroom accommodation, up to 2 bedrooms can be rented out in a residence where the owner is also there during the stay. That will be much less common, but that's one type of STL. The more common one will be a whole home rental, and our ordinance calls for 2-night minimums, but only in the commercial zones. This entire Chapter 14 only applies to the commercial zones. Next slide. There are a lot of elements in this ordinance. It basically requires a licensing process, an inspection process, lots of proof that they can run this business. And the key thing is we're only going to approve 10 licenses for year 1, and then we'll come back in a year and decide whether we want to grant more. So those are some of the key things that are in it. It is 14 pages long, so there's a lot more to it. Next page, please. Parking is a key thing. We have created an application document for people who, when they come into the borough, to apply for it, so they know what they have to provide. One of the things is a plot plan, where the parking going to be for which bedrooms you're renting, et cetera, and it's all going to be off-street parking, so you can't have one if you don't have the appropriate off-street parking. And then other specific things that they got to do if it's in the floodplain or there's a condo association associated with it, and who's going to manage it and how close they are. There are also 4 pages in it in terms of how to enforce if there's problems. And we've copied other townships' approach to this, and it seems pretty tight. So that, in summary, is what it's about, and I think now's the time to move forward.
Thank you so much for all the work you've done on this. I think the fact that nobody's here to talk about this means that they're bored of the issue. They've heard it all. It's been vetted, though, and that's how it really should be. It's really a good model for how to do things that have long-term consequences in our borough. And, it's just really up to maximum of. Did we specify the number in this? Or that's
Excuse me?
Is the number specified separately, or is the maximum number specified in here?
10.
10, right,
Yeah,
okay, so,
it's in the-
yeah, so we specify, okay, so our initial
the
number is 10.
previous page.
So it's potentially 10 properties in the commercial zone. If you think of the process we went through, which was, I think, like a year and a half or so, to get to this point, this is how you do it. So you think of like the police, it's got to take at least, I don't know if it's that long, but it's got to go at least that deep, that people feel they don't need to show up because it's already been figured out. So anyway, I just want to thank you for all the work you did on it.
Just want to concur. As the current chair of community economic development, it's nice to be able to work with someone like Don, who's so thorough and patient, and I just wanted to commend, thank you for doing that. And I have just one question, though, about the maximum of the 10 licenses. You said we could possibly come back and increase it. If we see that there's a issue, are we allowed to go
Yeah, sure.
lower? I
We'll
just want to
review it.
make
Decrease or
We'll
increase.
just review that portion of what it says in there is it says that the initial year will be a maximum of 10 licenses granted. And then those licenses, performance of those licenses will be reviewed on an annual basis, and adjustments to the number we made. Doesn't say up or down.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay? Any other?
If existing properties are grandfathered in, does that mean they do or do not count to the 10? And is there a point where they do if they, well, I'll let
No.
you answer the question.
No. The council has told me we can't force that issue.
Okay.
We're going to work with them and encourage them to do it, because if you are a property owner, a short-term rental owner, it's kind of, it's a good selling feature. If you ever want to sell your place to somebody else, well, I got a license. We would like them to voluntarily do it, but it can't be forced.
there's a
But you could argue that if they did, then we really are only approving 8 new ones, so it has less competition, So
So they're not-
But technically, they don't have to be.
They're technically grandfathered in, and they can continue operating in the commercial zones without it,
Right.
but they're given the option to apply for the license.
Right.
And then they can count. And I believe when I watched back the meeting, it said unless the property was, like if they're grandfathered in and on their license by being grandfathered in, and the property's sold, does that grandfathering transfer?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I understand.
Okay.
But if you are awarded a license or you buy a license that, and I sell it, then the license runs with the property?
No, the license does not run with the property.
Okay.
No.
All right, so
That's-
even if
It change
I'm
if,
grandfathered in, I get a license and I sell either way, the license is going away.
yeah, license goes away with property ownership.
It's like an operating
Okay.
license as opposed to like.
But if I was, let's say I was going to buy a property that was grandfathered in versus went through the process and got a license, I'd rather buy the one that went through the process and got a license, because
know
when
that
I go
they're-
apply, that one doesn't have enough parking, or that one, I would know that
You always have that
the
issue.
property I'm buying, well, they went through the process and they got it, so I should get it.
Right.
That's just
And,
my
and
opinion.
really, the only reason why I asked this for clarification, because there are some municipalities, not Yardley Borough, that the licenses can transfer with the property. So I just wanted to make sure, mostly because I know I'm going to be asked questions about this.
Existing properties would be smart to apply, because then there'd only be like, I think, 8 or whatever many slots left,
Get to
so
that.
less
That too.
competition,
That's also too.
Right,
It's a built-in incentive.
Right.
Yeah, it reduces the potential competition. Granted, we only have a couple of them anyway, but you never know, Yardley's getting more popular. So, okay. Any discussion from the public? Okay.
There's still publics using the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
I think she's probably good.
I think we're ready to call the question then?
Yeah.
I will call the question. All those are in favor, say aye. Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? And the motion passes 5-0.
Let's have a round of applause for that, yeah.
All right.
We ready?
Actually, I'm just going to, can I just give you item B, or you want to?
Yeah, item B is,
Right, as part of the short-term lodging, there is fees associated with it, so we need to amend our fee schedule. So for the short-term lodging application fee for the first year, it's $250. Short-term lodging application renewal fee each year will be $150. So I'm asking council to adopt the amended fee schedule.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Been any,
Motion to approve the updated Yardley Borough fee schedule. Do I have one?
so moved, yeah.
Okay. Motion made by Councilperson Applebaum and seconded by Councilperson Siegel-Morris. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a question on the other fees that are not related, I believe. Has there been any changes in those fees?
No
Okay,
other changes.
thank you.
Okay, yeah, it's a good question. Any other questions, discussion? No? Any discussion on that from the public? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 5-0. Our final item is first quarter budget review.
Nope, we missed one.
item C. You skipped.
See?
Item C is skipped, okay. Community outreach is our next group. I don't have anything listed.
Consensus to apply.
CED.
General
Got
government.
the amended.
Okay, community and economic development.
No.
It's actually kind of,
Down
No,
Item C.
oh, I'm sorry. Consensus to apply for the DCED Capital Project Loan Program. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the old version. I don't know what I did there. Okay. Yeah, you want to take that?
I shall take it for you, yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So as everybody knows, our roof continues to leak. Once again, the police department has begun to get rained on. We did have a patch done last year that was hoped to last a year. We're right around getting close to that time. With the heavy rains last week, we had numerous leaks throughout the police department. You can walk downstairs and smell how lovely it smells. So I am asking council to allow me to apply for the local government capital project loan program grant. It will be done in-house. We could potentially receive up to $100,000 to help with our roof repair. We will totally do a new roof over the police department. That's anticipated to cost just over $200,000. It's a 50/50. Then the rest is a 2% loan that we get to pay off over 15 years. So I'm asking council's consensus to move forward and apply for this loan, even though we did apply for the grant for a total replacement of it. We can't wait until September.
So we have a motion to apply for the DCED Capital Project Loan Program. Okay, you have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Councilperson Siegel-Morris, seconded by Councilperson Applebaum. Any discussion from council? And I guess I'll start us off because I think this is great that we're doing it. It's a direct doing this. So it's a backup plan, right? So if we get the LSA money, we will.
LSA is not going to be announced until possibly September.
Okay.
I'm hoping this is done a lot quicker.
So we just have to make sure that we know we got this, but that we do not, we want to anticipate that we might get the LSA. So we have to make sure we don't do that thing where we've spent the money before we get the grant, because then we don't qualify for the grant.
If we
So-
do get this and move forward with the project, we would pull from the LSA.
But does we have to just make sure that we don't, when you get these grants, if you do work before the grant has been signed, you can't get reimbursed for the grant. So I'm just kind of putting in caution to make sure that we don't do the work until we know that either we lost the LSA or we got the LSA.
The LSA isn't anticipated to be awarded until September. This will be a lot quicker, we anticipate. We hope to hear from this.
That's not my question. My question is, if we are awarded the LSA grant in September, and we already did the work,
We would pull from the
we
LSA.
can't pull from it because we didn't sign the grant yet.
We would
We would
remove ourselves
remove
from.
ourselves. We would
remove
take ourselves
from
out of the
Apple money.
Oh,
LSA.
remove ourselves, but why would we do that if we can get the money paid for by the LSA without a loan, without a 50% match?
Because we need to act on this now.
Well, we're in May now.
Yeah.
And we're talking about
Let's see what this process, how fast it is. Let's
Okay.
go get the loan approval. That doesn't,
Yeah,
that doesn't commit
let's
to
get the
spending
loan
funds.
approval and let's review it. So we're not
And then when we
authorizing work
pull
on the
the
roof.
trigger to say, start doing work,
I'm just
then we gotta make that decision.
Yeah.
I'm just confused as whether we're doing the loan as a backup or we're saying we
Well,
can't wait
the
to hear
loan-
from the LSA, so we're
The
just doing
loan
the loan.
is almost a certainty, and it's faster. So
Okay.
for sure, we're going to do it. The question is, how do we pay for it? Through the loan or through the LSA? And what I'm saying is it would be a shame to get the loan and have 50% that we have to pay out of pocket, and another 50% over 15 years. Even though 2% is great, make money on that, but I'd much rather have LSA pay for the entire thing with no loan. And we won't know that till September. So once we get this loan, we'll have a decision to make, and then
we'll make the
we'll look at what's in front of us. And I also have heard numbers anywhere from 74,000 to 250,000 for that roof. So I'd really love to get good estimates on that roof, because the range shouldn't be 300%. I don't understand what's going on with that, but I would be a little alarmed if I was getting estimates for my roof and they ranged.
Using the 200,000, which is what we applied to LSA.
Right, okay. So you were using this, we don't actually have the estimate.
Using the RVE quote.
Great. No, that makes sense.
So that's our worst case.
And I'm glad we're doing it,
But
because this,
while we did get the loan, yes, let's
Yeah.
go get our other quotes and see,
right.
like real quotes, not
Real
just the
quotes.
person who said, I think I can do it.
Yeah, we don't have to wait for the
Right.
loan to be
Right,
approved.
right.
We should be doing that. And also, when there's matters of, I know there's been questions of prevailing wage, but I don't want to exclude companies that don't pay prevailing wage, because I think we should ask them to adjust their quote to meet prevailing wage. If they don't, like in other words, otherwise you only get the companies that specialize in high-cost projects that love to do that in municipalities. And why not open the door? It's just a roof. You know, a lot of people do roofing. We could easily pay prevailing wage. So that's my 2 cents on this, but I'm glad we're doing it. I'm glad we had the grant.
Wage.
I'm glad we had the grant workshop that Caroline led.
Yeah.
Because that's what led us to discover that this grant exists.
Exactly.
So, any other discussion from council? Public, any discussion on this item? Okay, what's that? No, sir. Okay. I'm just, you're kind of part of the team. I will call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Okay. Motion passes 5-0. We will move on to item D, first quarter budget review. Sorry about that from before. That's a general government item.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
I'll make this
Overview.
quick, but I want to share with you where we are,
Okay.
what things are looking like so far in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Just to remind everyone, our 2025 budget that we presented to council, remember back in October, and we had assumptions about how 2024 would end, and then our cost for 2025. We passed a 2 mil tax increase because we knew our 2025 costs needed that help, so we did that. And now, as part of those budget assumptions, we expected the revenue less expenses for 2024 would end up being favorable, and then we would have 172K of funds from last year's performance to carry over to 2025. So that just sets the backdrop for what we thought, what our budget was based on, was having that 172 to carry over. And I'm going to tell you how we doing, how do we do at the end of 24, and how do we do in the first 4 months of 2025, and how we feel about the rest of 2025. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk revenues first. These are the major categories of revenues where it differed. How 24 ended was different than what we thought when we put the budget together. So tax revenues, which is regular real estate, occupation per capita tax, business tax, ended up about $5,000 less than what we thought. That's primarily because we did a good job getting delinquent people to pay in, and we didn't have our normal December is when the most delinquent people used to pay up. But in 2024, they paid up a little earlier, so we didn't get quite as much. Real estate transfer tax was close, within 1,000, and you can see the other changes on there. The other one I want to talk about is police services. Police services is essentially, well, there's some other events, but the main driver to that is the police supporting Abrams Academy, and they are up there for the entire school day. They would like them to be there. So we budgeted that, but because of the inability to get part-timers, we weren't able to cover as many hours as we hoped there. Abrams wanted us there. They had to go hire other people to do it, but we didn't have enough coverage, so we were under. Inspection fees came in.
Can I ask you something about that?
Yes.
So because they didn't hire us to do it, we didn't have to pay.
You'll see that on the next slide.
Okay.
You'll see that.
I hear the other.
Yep. Yeah, it goes on both sides.
Okay.
And then inspection fees were favorable. We brought in more inspection fees at the end of 24 than we thought. But that was really a timing thing for when we got the bills. It didn't really reflect a significant change. Zoning, we had a little more zoning fee action, a little less zoning fee action in the fourth quarter than we thought. And we got some contributions. So make a nut, 2024 ended up very close to what we thought. So that was good. The only things I want to comment about from January to April are two areas of concern. One is real estate transfer tax, and I have a separate slide on that in a minute. And the other is this ongoing issue with police services. We met with our acting chief, and he explained all the challenges about getting part-time people. We just don't have enough people to get the hours, and so we're way behind. We're only at 38% of where we thought we would be budget-wise. So I'm projecting that for the full year, that will be down $32K in real estate transfer tax and $20K in police services. Those are the biggies, with a few offsets. So that's the challenge. On the revenue side, we got a challenge of 44,000. So
And the real estate transfer tax, what do you attribute that to? Just less houses?
I'll show you on the, can you go to the next slide, please?
Okay,
I think
sorry,
it's
I
a
keep
transfer
asking you
tax.
your next slide.
Yes. This is the transfer tax, and if you look, the second column from the right is how it came in. And remember, it's a 1 month offset. So we had 1879 in January, then 13 grand and almost 14 grand in February, a good March, 11 grand, a lousy March at 3 grand, and then April we had nothing, and then we had a good May. The one thing I do want to draw your attention to is, if you look at the cumulative amount through April, 28,000 of real estate tax this year. If you look at over on the left from last year, we were at that same number last
Yeah, I
year.
was going to say, because.
And we beat the number for the year.
Because we're in the hot season now.
Yeah, we'll
There's a
see.
lag in this, which,
We'll see.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we could tell by how many houses are listed
We'll
since they
see.
sell in a second.
Virtually
There's none, yeah,
none.
Right.
But it was like that all last year, too.
right.
We sat here
When
at
they
the
list.
same, we had the same issue last year
Yeah.
at this point. And then we got some big sales. We had a big commercial property sale last year.
Right.
We had some big things happen. You can see some big numbers by the time we got to August.
Right.
So I'm not saying that won't repeat itself. It might. I'm not going to forecast it right now.
What you're
So when you
saying
look
is
at the
how
run
we-
rate here, that's how you come up with 30, 31, or 32K. If we continue at the pace we're at, we have a 30K problem. That's all. Okay? But hopefully I'll be wrong and it'll come back. We'll see. Okay, next slide. So we talked about income. So that's the income, where the income problems are. Now we look at the expenses. So on the expense side, when you look at 2024, which, remember, there's the last 3 months of 2024, Delta speak, this is all deltas. This is all changes from what the budget said. See, the police department was under budget significantly because they had less overtime to pay, because they couldn't get part-timers, and they had less part-timers. So they were under in 2024, and look at it's carried over. They're under significantly in the first 4 months of 2025. So I think some of that is going to be offset in the second half projection, primarily because we've had some significant vehicle repairs that are running like 2x what they should be, or what they have historically. Right to know, very little spend last year, and we think we'll be favorable there. So we're favorable so far, although after tonight I might change my tune on that. Okay, so that's a $5,000 good, I think. Engineering, I broke out 2 ways this year. Engineering costs plus the stormwater management kind of stuff. We finished where we projected last year, which was good, because the year before we didn't. We went over by $5,000. Year to date, we're running hot, so I'm a little nervous. So I think we probably have a $5,000 problem. I got to believe that all this back and forth with PICO is going to end up costing us somewhere down the line, but that's just my projection. On grants, we spent $6,500 more than we forecast when we put the budget together last year in '24. But remember, we sat here in November, and we consciously decided to go do some grants. And what I told you, Ori, is that we got the money. We got the 28.4 in our 25 budget, and we consciously decided to spend that to meet the deadlines of when they were due in 2024. So while that looks negative, it is negative, but it was a conscious move that we did. And then we just did a couple more, just came through the billing form, just came through recently. So when you add those two together, it's roughly 14,000. So we got about another 10 or 11 of grants for the rest of the year, some money to spend for grants for the rest of the year to get our 28.
The next item. I'm just kidding.
Okay. So that's why I projected not to be under or over for the total year, okay? Building maintenance and public works, this one's been we took a little bath this year, and it's primarily snow-related. You know, we got it's happened to a lot of people where we've had so many years of few ice events and few storm events that we were kind of banking on it. We weren't as we'd keep dropping it down because we weren't spending it. Well, we did spend it, and so that's a little bit of a problem area. Plus, we also had boiler and the roof repairs, temporary roof repairs. So even though, and I want to caution you though, even if sometimes those things come out of emergency fund, I look at it more holistically here, because if we took it out of emergency fund, well, we want to get the emergency fund back to where it needs to be.
Right.
So I'm pretending it came from the general fund, even though it really didn't. But it's a cost that we weren't really planning on at budget time.
Yeah.
So it's a thing we got to offset sooner or later, either this budget or next year. Okay. Code enforcement, planning, and zoning. We had a lot more activity of that in the fourth quarter. And so that was kind of up a bit. But again, there was some timing of billing, because you see we were favorable in the first 3 months of this year. I think we might have a little $5,000 extra or so there. Solicitors was favorable last year, but unfavorable this year. That's purely timing. If you really look at their run rate, they're right where we think they should be. And then the regular expenses in general government and executive were favorable, and that favorability has continued. So knock on wood, I think at least half of that, 9,000 will favorable, will keep to the end of the year. So when you look at all this, the expense totals are flat. Basically, we've had some negative things, but we've had some positive things. And the police department's really carrying us now. It's not like we consciously said, don't get people. We're trying as hard as we can to get people, but we will offset them with Abrams' work if we can get them in here. So the net incomes, we have a 44K, which is 1.3 mils of equivalent of potential problem. Although I said the same thing this time last year, and we figured out how to cover it. But that gives you a feel for where we are expense-wise.
Great.
Any questions on the budget?
Very well done. Thank you. Any comments, questions?
Okay.
And this isn't a vote. It's just a discussion. So I guess my question for you is with Abrams and outsourcing or contracting out our police, is that sort of like one cover the other, or is that helpful to us in some way in terms of
It's net a little bit helpful.
A little
The
bit.
way you price it, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not a big
like we're in the
driver.
business of
And it
contracting
purposely don't make it a driver. It's just like fines and speeding ticket stuff. We don't budget that. It happens, we don't want to drive those
Right.
activities go after a number, so we never do that. And so the same thing kind of is here. But it shows it. And in the defense, we want to get more coverage, because they want us there. They would prefer to have our guys, our
Right.
officers sitting up there, and we'd like to be able to service them more hours as well. Plus, gives us also flexibility to do other things, all kinds of, you're not just covering that. We got Harvest Day is another one, there's other events where we need
A little bit,
more
yeah.
temps in here, and we get some compensation for it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We're good? Okay, so we're going to move on to the final item for tonight, and that is Community Economic Development, West Afton Avenue Sidewalk Discussion. David, do you want to lead it? Do you want me to lead it?
I'd like to say thank you for leading this, Lori.
Okay, well, so speaking of last year, this proposal was on our agenda last year to get to work on the West Afton Avenue sidewalk. So just for the benefit of the public, reminder, this is really the last massive gap in our sidewalk infrastructure in the sense that it connects West Afton from Lehigh University area where the sidewalk ends down to, and that section of it is owned by Lower Makefield. And then across the street, there's a section by Yardley Borough that ends at about Breese. So we would go up Breese and connect to, somehow cross the street and connect to the other side. The grant we're looking at is the DCED MTF grant. Once again, this year, that grant has the match waived. That grant does not always have the match waived. It's kind of maybe, I don't know, it's hard to say, but it seems that money is drying up everywhere. So I'm kind of excited to jump on it because it may be the last opportunity to have this be a no-match 100% grant. Now, a couple of things about this, and this is really for discussion. I hope to have it next week for our next council meeting for a vote. There's a bridge there, and the sidewalk, the old bridge, that sidewalk may be a sidewalk that we can just keep and like connect our sidewalk through that bridge. And the advantage there is that the bridge would then not need any work. That bridge also may be on the PennDOT ADA upgrade list, in which case they would take care of it. We're trying to get to the clarity on that. But even if it wasn't, I would think to do this project in phases, where the bridge was the last phase. The reason being is that it kind of is to bring it up to code, but it's the only section of that stretch that actually has a sidewalk. So functionally speaking, kind of like we did on North Main Street, we were able to use that existing sidewalk on the bridge. But not having to do work on the bridge is a huge savings because it's going to be complex to work on the bridge. With that said, what I'm going to bring to council next meeting is the flushed out, revised grant application for this grant. And I will also say that we're going to have the same problem that we have with every one of these grants, which is that there'll be a shortfall between how much 10% of the project cost is for engineering versus how much the engineering cost actually is. The intention is that this is one grant that we want to apply for while we can get it, that we've been successful with before, but we would also apply potentially through the LSA to cover design costs. And this is going to take a little while to fund. And hopefully we'll get it the first round. We might not, but we will have the work done to be able to resubmit. But I'm hopeful we'll get it. And then Lower Makefield, they've indicated interest, although it may not align with when we get this grant, but that's okay, because to me, this is all about the pipeline. We've got to get it in, get the grant application in, get the grant approval in the pipeline. That takes so long. Then the other grant, we'll have to try to get that one for the design, the rest of the design portion. Lower Makefield, it's a lot easier for them. They have more funds available to do these kinds of things. Like I think the Taylorsville Road is only partially paid by grant, and so I think that our two sides will align once we show that we're serious enough. We've raised some money, and this is the idea here is to chip away at the problem. And like we were going to do last year, but this year we're budgeted for it. And this is really the last grant application I anticipate for this year. Anything else would be potentially minor or done in-house and not require any or very little engineering. So any questions or on this item?
What's what would the grant application be for what? For doing just the Sandy, just our piece of it?
Our piece, correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
And the
the
sidewalk
same-
will be on what side of the street?
It's the same proposal that we had last year.
You
that
didn't
we
have a
rejected.
proposal on the screen. You never showed me, I never saw a drawing of anything.
Okay.
So that's why are you doing retaining walls? Or are you going across the street?
No, not retaining walls. I mean, we have what was done a long time ago. Let him work on the bridge thing, and when we put it up, we can answer that. So I can't tell you exactly how it's going to run, but where the crossing is going to be.
Because my biggest concern with this, by far and away, is
Yeah.
the benefit to Yardley Borough residents.
Yeah.
How many Yardley Borough residents will walk on that?
Well, I mean, I
Not
think.
very many, because if
Well,
you live on Breese, you already have a sidewalk.
Well, okay, so I can answer that, and I think Jared, maybe you can answer because you walk there, you jog there a lot. But I see people walking there all the time, and I can tell you with my kids and my family, we go up to the library, we go up constantly to Lower Makefield, and that's the way you go. So without that sidewalk, you're basically walking or biking on the road. Plus, let's remember that part of Yardley Borough is on University, which is up that sidewalk.
And it's
So-
also Sandy Run.
And it's also in the comprehensive plan, and we want to execute, and that comprehensive plan is the last frontier.
You can get to the library from my side of town, FYI. Like safely, people can get to the library safely going this way. and cutting through Silver Lake and up to the elementary school, just.
On a,
so
on a
people-
sidewalk?
Yeah, yep, I walk my dog in Silver Lake every day, we walk to the school, yeah. You just go straight up and go through the bank or go through Yardley Station. And
Through
you're-
the bank,
yeah,
Yardley
yeah.
Station? Then you're
Just so
going
people
on,
are aware that you
yeah,
can't
but
go.
that's a much longer way to go.
Well, yeah, but okay, but it's
Right,
me.
no, if
I'm
you're,
gonna go,
right,
I'm
if
not
you're,
gonna go.
you're right, no, if you're on the, you're right, if you're on the south end of town,
Right.
you can go that way. But if you are on a different part of town, you're closer to going, I mean, Afton is a direct route, and I see people walking on it, so,
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just
yeah,
saying there is
that's a good
a
point.
way to go to Library.
Okay. You do have to go on the road, though. It is a, they are like Weinman Way, that road.
Yeah, but it's a neighborhood. It's
Yeah.
it's not Main Street. I walk on that literally every day with Mark.
Yeah, but it,
with
Make my
kids.
one comment. I may have to leave. A point well taken, Don. How does this benefit the residents of Yardley Borough? Well, as Chair of Community and Economic Development, I'm not only thinking about the direct benefit to Yardley residents, but also how do we develop economic impact? And one of them is to improve walkability, and that includes the people coming from Lower Makefield.
Right, which means Lower Makefield needs to be on board. I'm not going to support it till Lower Makefield's on board. I'll just let you know right now, until Lower Makefield's on. We met with Lower Makefield a year and a half ago. They said, no way, we got priorities down where we want to go, Taylorsville, the other direction, and that's not on our radar. And if it's not on their radar, it's a sidewalk to nowhere. You're going to go do 100 feet, and then it's going to sit for years and years. And the challenge, the biggest challenge, I think, one of the biggest challenges to that sidewalk is the steep hill you're coming down, and the Lower Makefield side of it, and water and all kinds of stuff that's going to happen on that piece. Not to mention that if they're coming down the other side, you're going to lose huge trees, a bunch of huge trees. So it's very challenging, but they need to be on board. I don't think we should do this in a vacuum without them being on board.
well, it's a
You
bit
don't
of a
achieve
catch.
what you want without LMT
Well,
have skin in the game.
I was at that meeting, and they were saying 2026, 2027. They weren't saying they're not on board. They were saying we want to get Taylorsville Road, but they're actively
Did they
doing
get
it.
it approved?
They got the grant, and they're doing it. So I'm just saying.
So let's get
it's-
them together with us and do a joint application then.
Well, but our part is going to take, even if we have a joint application, we won't be able to do our part without the other part. So I'm saying this year, it's the same application. We can't keep kicking this can down the road. We apply, we get it, we have it waiting. All the more reason for them to join up with us and do whatever else they need. It's going to strengthen our design grant. And this is something that we were working on 15 years ago. I have the old work that was done on it. So it's not like it's going to be done in a vacuum, but if our scheduling is different than theirs, that doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm happy to offer it to them again. Do you want to join this application? But I don't think if they don't want to join this year, that we should not do it, because we're going to be doing it anyway. One way or another, we're going to be doing it. It doesn't save us any money to do a joint application, because they've got to do our section, and they've got to do their section. So,
But if we just do our section, is that a good use of borough money?
they're going to do their section.
Well, okay.
There's a
You know
group
my
of four,
position. Okay.
yeah, but there's a group of 400 people on the Yardley Walks. That's the main thing they've been asking for and working towards. There's
Why aren't they
a lot
putting the
of
pressure on LMT to move it up the priority then?
We have requested that they do that. We've had both LMT residents and Yardley Borough residents
I'm
approach
just saying,
us.
we're going to be doing it. This is the same argument I had last year, except this year it's in the budget. Why wouldn't we do it and get it?
Sorry to interrupt. Is my presence needed right now? Because I have been asked to
Okay.
return home.
Okay,
Is that okay?
yeah, whatever you need.
Okay, thank you.
David, your jacket.
Oh, thank you.
My only question is, when we did that exercise with Caroline, and I don't recall, but we made a list of priorities of projects, and I don't recall where this fell on that list. That's all. I feel like that we should look at that list.
Yeah, that was the other question I had.
I'm only
Who's
asking
also
because I have absolutely no idea how that ended up, and I can't find it, because it's a long story.
I know it's the number one stretch of sidewalk I get asked about, and I know that it's on the comprehensive plan, and I know that Carolyn actually told me that next door to her at university, some people bought a house in 2 days, paid a pretty hefty sum for it, because they wanted something that they could walk to Yardley, assuming they'd be able to walk to Yardley, to the borough that they live in. The same problem we had in Orchard Terrace, where people couldn't walk from the houses they live in to the borough.
You really think someone bought it under the guise that we're getting a sidewalk?
Well, I don't know if
That's why they bought a
that,
house?
no, they wanted to
I hope
walk.
someone did,
No,
some
I
realtor
think-
didn't tell them
No,
that.
I'm not saying that. Well,
Okay.
I don't know what they said. I'm just saying they wanted to be able, they waited 3 years to find a house that they could walking distance into the center of town. People use it, it does help our business. It's useful in both directions. Kids use it. I mean, do you see people?
I
You're there
would
like,
make this
oh,
argument, because I think I do understand your point about who does it benefit. I understand where you're coming from on that. What I would say is that it does connect Lookover, because if you're at one end of Lookover, are you going to walk all the way down to College and backtrack? It's kind of like how people jaywalk on Main Street instead of going down to a crosswalk. They take the path of least resistance. And that corner, I mean, even when my wife and I take the block and go down Lookover and then take that right turn onto Afton, that stretch just between Lookover and Breese, you're kind of taking your life into your hands there on that
Yeah,
corner.
What I do is I walk straight across and walk in Calico Corners.
See, we don't do that at all. We stay
Sure,
on
that's a
the,
safer way to do it. It's a lot safer way to do it. But anyhow.
or we could put a sidewalk in.
Yeah. I think I think the best thing to do is, and I look for the December 3rd meeting, we did all the prioritization. And I didn't see the document come back as to, and we ranked them, we did all that work.
Right, I don't know
Where it was, if it was top of the heap, then your argument's much better. I don't know if,
I mean, this was the whole budgeting process. This was one of the main items to put in the budget to do for this year. It was rejected last year because the money wasn't in the budget. And I said, let's take it from reserve. We're going to do it one way or another. Let's do it now. And so now we have the money, and now we have the matching grant waived again. And, our rate of return is like over 1,000% on these grant applications. The idea that this has been in the comprehensive plan since 2014. Actually, it was before that, but I don't think they have to remake the case of why we need a sidewalk. I think it's going backwards. The question you're asking about Lower Makefield joining, I'm happy to engage with them and talk more with them about that. But I don't want to lose a non-matching opportunity to get this paid for and then come back next year. Hey, guess what? It's a 20% match. That could be $300,000.
So this grant will pay for the entire project.
This grant would pay for the entire project. The problem is that with all of these projects, our engineering exceeds 10%. That portion we would cover with another grant is how I would look at it.
it wouldn't pay for the entire project, it'll pay to Sandy Run, right?
It would pay for the part that's in the borough.
Which is 80% of the project.
Yeah, it's the more complicated section.
I just know there's a lot of people that walk up and down the hill now on the shoulder of Afton. It's dangerous. And personally, when I see people walking, I don't stop them and go, "Are you a Yardley Borough resident?" "Okay, you are. You get a sidewalk." "Oh, LMT resident?" "Go ask your leaders." And so,
Are they reaching out to Lower Makefield? Because I know
They are,
of
they've
your,
engaged them.
yeah, but of your walkable Yardley, there's 388 members on there.
Mm-hmm.
So myself and Patty and Wes went through that list of members. There's 45 borough residents on there. So that's not a huge outcry to Yardley Borough.
What do you mean? Where else do you see a list with that number of people? I mean,
5 of 388.
this is, I gotta,
Makefield should be on board
Look.
with this.
we need a roof. I get that. I get you don't care about that sidewalk because you don't use it, but I see people whenever I go there on the sidewalk. My wife rides her bike on Afton Avenue pretty much every day, up and down that street. Sometimes someone's going to get hit, Do we want to sit here and say we didn't apply for a grant because we didn't want to spend the money for a grant?
think that-
It's thousands of people it's a gap of a few blocks that connects thousands of people. So I can't believe that I'm hearing another year now and punting this forward. This needs to
I'm
go
not saying
in.
punting for him, I'm saying get Lower Makefield on, you're making
I
this a
will,
passion
okay.
plea for it. Lower Makefield should be doing. Go to
I
their
agree
planning
with you.
commission, their public works meetings, and make that case,
Okay.
and get them on board.
But I've got to get this moving, and if they're not going to be on board yet this year, because it's 1 year ahead of their schedule, and we lose the opportunity, why would, and we're going to pay the same thing anyway, so what's the difference? I think that absolutely, we should get them on board, but I can't make them come to the table for this particular round.
But if we show action that we've done 80% of the project, I would think that would, and by the way, on the numbers thing, so Yardley Borough is 10% of Lower Makefield's population. So if 38 members of a 380, that's about spot on. We have the proper number of residents that are
Do you
Yardley
think
Borough
they would have done the Taylorsville Road sidewalk, which they're going to do, if we didn't do the North Main Street sidewalk?
Yeah.
It all came together, but they came later to the table with that one. But as we're finishing that one, now to put North Main Street sidewalk in,
I think if we get in a standoff of we're not going to move until they move, and if they're in a standoff of they're not going to move, which if they only have a little stretch, they wouldn't. That's why this hasn't been done since
It's
2014.
easy to sit here and just not do stuff, you know? And look how much money we saved. We don't have to spend anything because we didn't do anything. That's not why I'm here. I mean, I could just stop because I had the sidewalk.
Only asked, where is it
I
on
know,
the
I
list
know.
of priorities? And
I know.
there is no
It's
answer. I don't
high.
have an answer to that question.
Well, in my view, it's high.
No, but we as a council voted on that.
Tell me about another sidewalk that is higher on priority list than that.
I don't disagree with sidewalks. I think that's awesome. I'm just asking where, like, what, because we as a
Isn't there-
council voted on that.
Isn't it
I
our
see that
job?
list.
Isn't it our job to,
We didn't vote on that list. We
I don't
just
know
did
what
an
list you're talking
exercise.
about.
Right.
We didn't vote that those were our official order of priorities.
Right,
Yeah, we did the little
there's gonna be
survey,
more
we
to
did all
come
the
on that.
dinky dots. It took us, like, we couldn't see them, remember? Like, so we
Yeah.
kind of did.
I don't even remember seeing the results of that.
Right, exactly. I would like to see the results of that.
Okay.
But the point is that we have a comprehensive plan, and we need to execute our comprehensive plan. This is not a new thing. This was worked on 15 years ago between Lower Makefield and Yardley Borough. So it's not like we're pulling this out of a hat.
So then we get this, so hypothetically, we
And we
apply,
have it in the budget, right?
we have it in the budget to apply for the grant,
Correct.
right? And then, so say we get that grant, but we can't do anything yet because we have to get another grant for the engineering. How long?
Well, we need
like-
to figure out what the gap is.
Right, but we
we
have.
need to-
How long does the grant, can the grant just sit there?
A while. It can sit there for years. It can get
Really? You can
renewed.
be awarded a grant and just sit there?
It
for
can
years?
get renewed. The built-in is,
Phase 3 has been sitting there because we're waiting on PennDOT.
we've had that happen multiple times, and you have to make sure you renew it. I think there was one we once lost because we didn't renew it. I don't remember. It was a small one.
You know, or we could just put this to a vote, and if it gets voted down again, then when people ask us
know who's-
why we don't have sidewalks, we'll tell them, just like we did last year.
I hope it doesn't, I hope we can work as a team on it. I mean, I'm a little bit dismayed that I have to justify something that's been worked on for 15 years. I think that's, just talk to the planning commission. Go and talk to them. Look at the comprehensive plan. You know, go and walk it, see how safe you feel.
We didn't even vote on it yet. We're having a discussion right here.
I know, but I-
Your thing is
yeah.
discussion, so
Okay.
we're just discussing it.
All right.
Nobody voted no on anything yet.
Okay. Thank you.
That's right. We're just like,
But
That's
it
true.
sounded like the discussion was shut down as this is not a priority, so we don't want to do this until Lower Makefield's on board.
sound like they get such
Yeah.
shut down
one
from
person's
some
view,
members
seven
of this
people on
council.
I understand.
I
Well,
just-
we're done. We don't have 7 right now.
What I'm hearing is basically you want Lower Makefield, and I'm not confident that I can bring them to the table this year, and I don't want to lose.
The other thing I really want to see is I haven't seen one sketch, I haven't seen one drawing, I haven't seen
Okay.
one cost estimate.
Well, I don't want to
I've heard
spend
all kinds of
money.
things about
I don't want
engineering.
to, I don't want to spend money on that stuff,
Yeah.
Well,
you know?
We can't
That's,
have engineering without, because that costs money.
yeah, I can show you what was done in like 15 years ago, if you want to see that. I have all
don't agree
that.
to cutting down all those trees. If
What's
it's
that?
on that side of the road.
I-
'Cause was
I find
driving
it hard
down
to
there
believe
the other day,
how-
I'm like, oh, that's
how
a lot of
M&T is
old
gonna
growth
do-
trees. They do not agree to cutting down.
You look how close they are,
No,
to
I'm
it's not
not,
a
I'm
choice, I
not
think.
sure what
I
side
don't know what side
LMT
it is.
goes down from there, whether
Oh,
they
you think they
cross.
cut into the bank and put a
No,
retaining wall?
I'm not sure which side they go down on.
If they go down on the,
They're at
Lower Lane
University.
side.
Are you
that
referring
side.
to the old growth trees that on, between Lookover and Brees, or are you referring
no,
further
no,
up the
no,
hill?
It's going
No,
down
up
the
the hill.
side of our.
Okay, okay.
Ginormous. I wouldn't.
I think those are outside of the borough.
We're outside the
Yeah,
borough,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
They'll have to figure it out. Like I said, work was done on it,
I have
and,
no control.
you know, the work was done on it. the council's changed hands, and the new people who came in didn't take it, didn't take it back up. So now we're taking it back up.
That council was working on the Permit-Yardley Bridge.
No, I mean, long before any of us were here, and in Lower Makefield also. It's just, there was changeover and things get dropped. So, I think we should finish it, and I think we have a great chance of getting it because it connects so many residents to each other. So, anyway, I will close it. Yes, comment from the public.
Quick question, sorry, I know everyone's tired. Why do all these grants cap the engineering costs? Because it just seems
I know.
tough for the.
Yeah, I recently had that conversation with somebody on a different, I forgot who it was, but that's a big problem. And I have actually read about that being a problem for a lot of boroughs. And there's been talk of trying to change how they operate. And also, it doesn't mean we can't bid it out to different engineers and try to reduce the engineering cost. But the problem is, it's kind of like some of these projects are heavy in engineering and others are heavy in construction. I actually think with a project like this, there may be enough construction that it'll be closer. But you just, it's hard with the cost of engineering. It's hard to cover it with 10%. And why do they do it? Maybe there was a time when they were able to cover it with 10%.
Yeah.
And they just arbitrarily, because I don't think the idea is to make it a problem for boroughs. But when it's like 1.5 million and the engineering ends up being 30% of it, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Well, I think we're ready to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Any second? And all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion, meeting adjourned at 9:35 PM.